You sit and complain, but do nothing to change the situation. You just sit there and put the blame on everyone around you because in your eyes you're a saint. All you talk about is your past, your dad, and everyone who's doing you bad. It's so sad. But none of the blame is ever put on you. The truth, if only people knew, would be something new that you could from once introduce. Your whole life is a lie, you're two-faced, you're a clown. You'll say anything to have people look up to you and say that they're proud. But deep down, it's all a charade. How long will you be able to keep this whole thing up until it all comes crashing down and people realize that you're fake? You act clueless, you act the victim. Everyone feels sympathy for you, but really you're just a big dumb piece of shit who denies responsibility. Imagine your kid, one night stand, say the magic words, eject and switch. But people have no idea of the person that you truly are. If they did, they would agree that you should have spent the last 30 years behind bars. But hold on a sec. First, I need to take a minute to explain who you are as a whole and the events that transpired, which will ultimately forge someone you knew world but embrace the cold. I know for a fact that a party knows joy, that a party wishes you can rewind time and make a different choice. Whether it's in your marriage, with money, or the master you're forced to hold, you're the only person in the world who is in control. No one else can change anything, it's all on you. And the day you decide to own up to your actions will be the day that you will have freed your tortured soul. But go ahead, keep spending all your time at church on your knees and continue to pray. It's all you can do after all that's happened, and whenever you go outside until it continue to rain. All your trauma started when you were just an adolescent, and now as an adolescent. Ongoing problem, your main source of pain and distress has and will always be your father. All the abuse you endured throughout his time on earth till the day he died scarred you. Since then, that has been the cause of all your misery. I can hear you having nightmares at night and waking up with no energy. I don't know how you do it, but I know it's taking stone. And I guess all those bottles are like you keep it in bed, sign out blessing and told. It's what helps you forgive, it's what helps you to continue. It's what's been keeping you from exploding. All those shots are keeping your head a whole piece. Your whole life since you were born turned out to be a mess. At this age, I'm sure you're seeking some deep rest. It's no wonder the doctor started prescribing you pills to help you whenever you start to feel depressed. But maybe going to a church will help you feel better. Did you ever contemplate suicide? I'm sure you did, but at some point, at the night, you decided to coordinate truth with lies. That became your new reality, and it began to form your new life. Even if it wasn't what you wanted, the worst became your gift. Now if you're at home or at work, you're rummaging in the dumpster. Your spirit high filled with wonder, knowing God has blessed you with whatever it is you find under. Need that trash bag and supper. To make matters worse, your father taught you that the way to love was through hurt. You never once saw your dad give your mom a kiss or a hug. Well, I guess he must have been one miserable fuck. Your mom's face would meet your dad's hand with a punch. Then she'd take a nap and rest on the floor filled with blood. He didn't tolerate disrespect. To him, power was a drug, and even with the daily dose, he couldn't get enough. The bell would crack on an impact, your eyes would flush. With tears, your vision would blur in your house. Happiness was no such thing. Was the shit you had, your mom would serve you lunch. But the cherry on top that would mess up your persona was one night when a dark figure came in your room and sat on the side of your bed. He put his hand on your shoulder and leg. A few moments went by and they began to touch. You were frozen and shook, unable to defend. You closed your eyes and waited till they left. You covered your face and then you wept. It's because of these events that growing up I can hear you talk while you slept. But I've never seen you talk to a licensed specialist who can help you straighten your head. Just a bunch of small white bags with containers with meds. Pills to help you stay still. You're always anxious because the danger in your head is real. A few shots of this and that to help you chill. Cause your brain replays the movie and it won't stop until you're 6 feet under, your time has run out, and your family at rest and your wishes have been fulfilled. I have very few memories of us being a family, of us all laughing, but more out tragically, and said sadly. Moments where I felt you were genuinely happy. Maybe because the monsters in your head were napping, and you were for a short period free from all the rasping. That day it was cold, but not in a bad way. We had never been at such a high altitude. I saw some wind nearby and thought, should I add it to? The fire in my hands and fingers were starting to grow numb. I had never seen snow, I mean it was just ice, but wow. You had taken us for a trip to the mountains. By nature we were surrounded. It was so cold it had to be under 1,000 degrees. There was a small stream where we found salamanders, little reptilian things. There wasn't much to do, no Wi-Fi, no TV. We just wanted to run and explore. The sun slowly went to sleep and took with it the heat. We returned once more after that week. You invited some friends and took my older brother and me. After everything you'd been through, church is where you find your peace. We went to several churches, always listening to the pastor preach. One time there ended up being some kind of retreat. We stayed a weekend one time, you, my brother, and me. When you came to birthday parties, you would go straight to the phone. You would call so many people and tell them, hey yo, it's my son's birthday, man, come over. And the house would fill up with cousins, uncles, and smoke would bellow from the garage. You turned it on and it began to glow. You would always have a plastic bag ready filled with corn. By the end of the night, the table would be lit up with half-finished cans of Pepsi and Coke. As a kid, you were my idol. You were my hero. You'd get up at 4 and go to work, and one time I woke up to give you a hug before you left. You would take us to the park, backs packed with clothes, and towels sunscreen from my face, legs, and arms. We'd all get our things and get in the car. I think it was your favorite because this one had a lake. After work, we'd go and take a break. We would spend the entire day there until it got dark. But my fondest memory of you will always be when I was at my youngest age. We were sitting outside on the back steps eating some sugar canes. The side of the house would be filled with that stuff, and you would take a knife, break a piece, set it down, and begin to shave off the skin. Then you would cut it down into pieces and give me a piece to taste. And so that was life for a few years. From my perspective, everything was great, nothing was weird. But little did I know that when I was busy idolizing you, mom and sister were hiding their bruises and shedding tears. When you weren't in front of me, those monsters would wake up and wreak havoc. havoc. I would soon meet them when we moved to our second home in a monopoly that was massive. But before that, the events that transpired in the house were tragic. Coupled with the abuse from your own father, you had started your own practice. You had developed your own twisted methods of lifting your belt whenever you cracked it. You trained your fist to become your personal weapons and mass destruction. It seemed like you developed your own addiction of hurt, and without your dose of painful bursts, you weren't able to function. You'd think when a man becomes a father that he'd want to be a better person, especially if his first child was a daughter. He'd be her first love, hold her hand, guide her in life, he'd feel some sense of honor. Show her how to navigate the world from the moment she's a toddler. Not let any boy near so she can't get her heart broken as she wanders to the world, creating her own path that she gets older. Eventually she brings home a boy. You dread it, but you welcome him. She introduces you guys and says, "Daddy, this is Robert." Time passes by and now you find yourself gazing at her beauty as she holds her soon-to-be husband's hands at the altar. It's in that moment when you start to reminisce and think back to when you first held her in your arms for the first time and made a quiet promise to yourself that no matter what happens in life, you were always going to be there to protect her and be her knight in shining armor. You watch as they exchange vows, share a small kiss, and for a second you catch her gaze and you can't hold it in any longer. You raise your hand to your mouth, blow her a kiss, exhale, wipe your eyes and think that after everything you went through, you can live your life knowing you did your job. That's the ultimate floss. Flower petals dead to the air, the sound of rattling cans slowly start to disappear and you couldn't be any prouder. Now, what happens when you're the reason why the house is filled with flashing lights and the neighbors woke up to the sound of sirens? What happens when the person who's supposed to love and protect is the one causing all the violence? When the protector is being escorted out to a patrol, and you know when he returns he'll be filled with even more anger and the fury will take control. At least those are just some of your thoughts. For now, things go back to normal until one day when you're cooking and suddenly you hear a knock. Unable to believe what you see, your breath is at a loss. Standing in front of you is him, but this time he's calm. He starts to express how much he loves you and how he knows what he did was wrong. Unconvinced, halfway you raise your hand and say stop, but he doesn't. He explains that without you he feels lost. Why else would he have come back? If he truly didn't, he would have took off. He continues to explain and you know he won't quit until you give him another shot. A part of you still loves him and wants this to work out. You stand there listening to the words coming from his mouth. Tired, you open the door and you post it on the couch. You lay the rose and stand your ground. It will be over forever if he commits one more act that is foul. He gives you a word and a promise that you won't regret. With a bit of doubt, he leans in and on your cheek leaves a small peck. And things are great, the air starts to fill with love. Each morning it gives you a light kiss and a hug. A part of you begins to feel strong. It's been a while since you felt your cheeks get flushed. You feel confident in your decision and shoot as warmth as your drug. Every night when you're in bed, you both feel a rush. It almost feels like you've been in with the drug. And when you come back, you both vibrate when both your hands touch. Then one day he pops the question and says there are things he needs to express. Your ears begin to smile. When he finishes talking, you say yes. You're hunched over the toilet, sick to your stomach, feeling like a mess. There can only be one possible explanation, so you rush to the store and when you come back, you take the test. It's Sunday morning and it's time for church. You shower, put on your earrings, a striped blouse, and a matching elastic skirt. He comes in, he looks you up and down expecting a compliment, but instead receive the opposite.
Whoa, you're not really wearing that, are you? We're going to a place of worship, plus I don't want to have to lay down some perv.
A bit confused, she walks over to confess, slowly leaning on his chest, implying not to worry, there won't be anyone for him to check. He grabs her by the shoulders and slowly pushes her back, goes to the drawer, picks out a piece and says,
"Here, where's that?"
She says,
"No, there's no need. Let's just leave."
Unsatisfied, he says,
"Please, for me."
She continues to deny, but he's still not satisfied. He gives her a second chance and what happens next is a flash. She doesn't see it coming, it was fast. She opens her eyes and feels a sting. Placing a hand on her face, she feels a swollen bruise and it bleeds. Everything is sideways and she can barely see. She feels a sharp pain as her heart plummets. Or maybe it's something else she feels for the baby in her stomach. Give me one more push, the doctor says it's all you need. Pushing the sheets with the red face, she concentrates and gives one last scream. The baby is out. She's about to faint but finally feels relief. She puts her head back, able to relax and in a slow manner begins to breathe. The doctor holds the baby and a second later calls the nurse. After a moment they cut the cord and discover it's a little girl. The doctor walks out in the hallways and there he talks to a man. His head nodding, he slowly feels with joy at the news that he's a dad. They both walk in and the nurse carefully places her in his hands. The mom in bed examines his face. She's happy but in her eyes lives a hint of sad. She can't help but think back to that day. Maybe he was right, none of that would have happened if she would have just changed. But the past is the past. She wants to move forward with her daughter, and the last thing she wants is for her to grow up without her father. After a long day, they're back home again. She opens the bag and takes out a bib, makes a bottle, lays down and checks that it doesn't drip. She's exhausted and as soon as the baby burps, they both begin to drift. Little does she know that in her arms is a miraculous kid. With her report card in hand, she walks to the kitchen and takes a seat. Her mom is fixing her plate of snacks with a little bit of sweets. Curiosity builds and she has to ask, "What is that? Can I see?" Unfolding the card, she looks at the girl, at the paper, and at the girl once more. It has to be a dream. Continuing to stare at the paper so hard, just in case that the printed letters begin to flee. Every school year seems like it can fly. Every grade and every class is an A. It's almost as if she doesn't even have to try. Standard classes are no match for her, so the school puts her in honors, and naturally gives the child to say the least. At this rate, she could become a doctor. But eventually, she meets her match. She's smart, and all the boys are nice. In every class, it's a "Hey dude," but they both stay away. They don't want to distract. They all have high goals in life, and they can't afford anything that will cause them to lose their track. That doesn't mean they can't be friends and talk. So, where do you live? Over there. Oh, me too. So, would it be cool if we walk? With the light speed, they both laugh and chat. Can I see your books? Sure. Wow, you're good at math. With a few blocks to go before they go their way, they're completely unaware that mayhem that's about to ruin their day. Another day, another dollar is what he repeats in his mind. He puts his lunchbox in his truck, closes it, opens the door, and climbs inside. Excited to get home, he turns this block and that block. But what catches his eyeball is what makes him break and then stop. There on the sidewalk is a girl and a guy. They're not holding hands or close together, but they're side by side. His temper begins to elevate and he puts in the gear to drive. He can't wait to pull up to them and catch them by surprise. With their house around the corner, they both start to say goodbye. Suddenly they hear a squeal. A man gets out and his mouth isn't at all shy. He walks up to her, arms extended, grabs her hair, pulls her away from the guy, throws her in the car.
You don't move. Stay right there.
The car burns rubber and he knows exactly what to do. They don't have much time left. They're out in the country. They'll be back soon. The time has come. His heart is beating like a drum. Parked in an empty field, he turns the key, gets out, goes to her door, opens it, holds her shirt in a clutch. He drags her out. Head turning side to side, he looks around. Pause, looking straight ahead, content with what he sees. In a swift motion, he pulls her and throws her against the tree. He looks up, a nice long thick branch. He pulls until it snaps. He inspects the weapon and takes a glance at her. Without warning or a single word uttered, he extends his arm and begins to purge. She covers her face, feeling like she's about to have a heart attack. She can barely breathe, her heart has never beaten so fast. She can't even think because her mind is racing. She squirms, unable to defend herself from this furious, crazed being. All she feels are painful stings on her legs and back. Blinded from the pain, she keeps her face covered with her petite bruised hands. Her clothes start to form small rips, but he keeps going. She hasn't learned her lesson, even though small bits of blood start to drip and stains on her clothes start forming. And then like a miracle, there is complete silence. Little by little, her fingers move and she opens her eyelids. His eyes are wide because what he sees isn't her, it's him. He's frozen in a moment of deja vu, a moment of the abuse that he suffered as a kid. That same little guy staring back through his fingers and it's only after he blinks that it's the girl once again. But now something is different, something has changed. It's like someone flipped a switch and he enters an even more benevolent fit of rage. He tightens his grip, now he sees clearly, now he's on a mission to get justice for his childhood and his loss of innocence. He begins to strike once again, but now with an even greater force. All he sees are the injustices in his life and he feels no remorse. He strikes and he strikes, his arm is getting sore. With each impact, his branch has been getting worn. So focused on his mission, he doesn't realize that his arm swung through empty air. Caught by surprise, it takes him a second to realize that the branch broke. Satisfied and with a sense of completion, he drops the remaining half and wipes his forehead. The girl in a hurry runs up the doorsteps. The doorbell doesn't ring once, it rings several times. Her mom opens it in shock, her daughter bruised and bloody wipes her eyes. She asks, "What happened?" But just then the man walks through the entrance, the girl takes off to her room and closes the door behind. She turns to him infuriated and demands an explanation. But in his defense, it's not his fault. He tells her to ask her daughter, after all she knows exactly what she did wrong. But halfway through the scold, he flaps his arm as if to say whatever, leaves to his car, takes off down the road. He checks the rearview mirror and sees the boy once again. He turns back, he's gone, he nods his head. He brought justice himself, he's content with what he did. But he can't help to think back to what just transpired. The monster goes back to being dormant, but before he goes to sleep, he whispers something in his head. He nods in agreement, but we all know that he's a liar. She keeps knocking, but there is still no answer. She says that it's okay that he's gone and that there is no more danger. The house is quiet. The calendar marks Friday. The weekend is coming. She has a weird feeling, not sure, but there's something. It's the eye of the storm and everything is calm. There is no wind. In due time, they'll face the final wave which will lead them to the end.